ma'am was talking about right expectations, right? So what if a person has a right expectations from somebody else, but what if still the expectations are not fulfilled? Okay, so this thing will still lead to a disappointment, no?
Yeah, but for that we need to understand what are those expectations.
Yeah.
What do we expect for?
So
So
ma'am mentioned that right expectations will be okay in a particular thing. Okay, so what if we still get disappointed if we have a right expectations and even though they are not fulfilled, even then they
yeah,
are not fulfilled.
yeah. So that's what I mean to say. We need to understand what are those right expectations. What do we
Hmm.
expect for?
Yes, sir.
So we expect for trust,
Absolutely.
right? The other person should have trust on me.
Yeah,
But for
absolutely,
that,
sir.
do I need to have the clarity on trust or not?
Absolutely, it's necessary, sir.
So unless I have a clarity on the trust, what is meant by trust,
Hmm.
whether even the other person is ensuring the trust on me, but I will not be able to understand it.
Yeah, right, sir.
So it's basically my lack of, knowledge, my lack of understanding
Hmm.
leads to that disharmony and kind of emotions.
Yeah, right, sir. That's
So
absolutely
for
right.
that we need to understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manas. Mr. Naresh, you have microphone.
Very
Vishwajit.
well, sir. We have our resource person, our Gopu sir, who has already joined us. So, a very warm welcome to you, sir. Uh, yes, Sumesh Bhaiya, we can welcome, sir. And then we can take up a few more reflections, Bhaiya.
Yeah, Gopuji, namaste. The sessions have been really enjoyed by students, and we are just listening to their experiences. So, Vishwajit, and we will start session at 2 o'clock sharp,
Yes,
but
Bhaiya.
we have 8 minutes, and we thought of doing the right utilization of these 8 minutes. So, Vishwajit, you want to share something about yesterday's sessions of science and history?
Bhaiya, so Vishwajit's mic is unmuted, but we are not able to hear him, maybe due to some technical problem. Then maybe Mr. Naresh M. Naresh, would you like to talk to us about your
Manas,
experience?
yeah, Manas Sharma,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Manas Bhaiya talked right now.
yeah,
Sorry.
Manas.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you want to share your learning and understanding from yesterday's session?
So
This particular.
yesterday's session of Gopu, sir.
Yes.
So, it was something which was I was not that much familiar to Indian mathematics. I don't have that much interest in mathematics, so I was like, okay, whatever I was taught, I was studying that only. Yesterday, sir's session was something which gave me new knowledge about Indian mathematics, and it also taught me that our culture has been so rich, but it has been suppressed by the foreign invasion, or you can say interruption. So it
Mm,
was and for our generation especially which we as youngsters, we need to know what our culture has been, or what is our heritage. So
mm.
yeah, it was important for us.
Good, good. Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you so much to you too.
Yeah. So if the students, if you want to share something about yesterday's Gopu sir session, or if you have doubt, Sri Hari or
Namaste.
Rujin, yeah, namaste.
Sir, do you want me to share my experiences on yesterday's session?
Yeah, learning from yesterday's, Gopuji's session.
Sir, Govuji's everything in his session was full of knowledge, and I had learned everything from it. There is nothing which had not invoked me curiosity in me, because everything is just literally invoked curiosity in me and made me a curious mind to go behind that. And I have visited his blog today, Varahamihira Govu, that blog I have visited today. So it was a beautiful session. And one thing that I have to add on the basis of what Manas Sharma has told is that our culture has been frequently interrupted or invaded invaded by foreigners. But what that happened is our culture is something which is longly sustaining, which has not got away with his roots. So I think that with these rising ups, with this knowledge on our ancient culture and the spreading of this knowledge, we would be able to get back with our cultural roots and then strive forward. That's also.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Arzu Jindal.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Sir, yesterday's session was very good, and in yesterday's session, our perspective also changed. That we also learn about that zero was invented by Aryabhat, but yesterday we got to know that zero was invented before that. So we got to know very well about the cultural of India and history of India.
Hmm. Hmm. So is this eSIP is helping you?
Yes, sir, very much.
Okay. Thank you.
And another thing, Umesh Bhaiya, for the benefit of the children around here, the session from 4:30 to 5:30, dear students, is by an eminent professor of physics, a great physicist, of course, whose books you have may have studied all along, by Professor H.C. Verma, sir, and he is going to be with us for 4:30 to 5:30 session. So he's going to talk to all of you. He's going to, put forward some of his views in front of you. So that's going to be another interesting point. Okay, and of course we'll continue with the sharing of the children for another, let's say, 2 minutes or so, and then we'll, since Gopu sir is already with us, so we'll be taking up Gopu sir's session then. Umesh Bhaiya, is that fine, Bhaiya?
Yes. We'll listen to one last sharing.
Yes, Bhaiya.
So the student can raise their hand.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question for Gopu, sir. So can I ask?
Huh?
Okay. Yeah,
You
he's
can.
there with us. You can ask the
Yes,
question.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sister, yesterday you told us that you left your job at Microsoft, sir. So what was that one thing that drove you back to India?
It's actually after Microsoft, I worked still for a brief time in California for like a .com thing. So
Okay.
I should say I should really left the software industry, not a particular company. At that time, it was not really so much. What happened was I read a book, historical fiction book,
Okay.
in Tamil at that time, in
Yes.
the gap period between one job and the other. A
Hmm.
book called Sivagami in Sabadam. This is about a battle that took place, war period between Pallavas and Chalukyas. Pallavas are ruling in Tamil Nadu, Kanchipuram, and
Okay.
Chalukyas are ruling from northern Karnataka.
Yes.
And that talked about certain aspects like Ajanta and all that.
Hmm.
So that it was an understanding India that I didn't realize before. But at that point, my interest in this field was not very substantial. I was, just beginning to kind of get a glimpse of it. Only when
Yes.
I came back to India, and after that, I started reading some books and interacting with people, and then only later I got really involved in this. At that
Yes.
point, my idea was to become a writer.
Okay, sir.
That was India was not that high. Indian culture was an aspect, but it was not the dominant priority.
Oh.
That once I read more and more, then I realized that was it became very interesting.
Okay, sir. So one more question, sir. Do you believe that the modern science that we look today is somewhere based on the Indian mythology, or we can say it is somewhere based on that?
No. My mythology is different. Science is just science. Science
No.
doesn't.
What I mean to say is there are there some ideas which are mentioned in the Indian we can say those scriptures and all, which are now implemented in today's time.
So like I mentioned yesterday in the lecture, 80% of our high school mathematics is basically Indian things that are
Yeah. Okay.
discovered by.
Yes, sir.
let's not confuse literature and mythology and culture with this aspect. There are different things that we are doing. Okay, and that applies even to Western mythology or Mesopotamian. They also discovered some stuff. We have certain continuity. For example, a plastic handle and a metal blade and something. Prehistoric man used a knife. Knife is 500,000 years old. Yes. Cavemen also using knife, except they were using stone knives. They were using, shaped the knife and used it. So you can't connect, you can't just, think based on that. Our understanding our mythology and culture, we do it for our own understanding. And understanding how much, we are ignorant. We are given kind of, given all credit to Western societies. As Western society did a lot. Europeans, Americans, even today, Koreans, Japanese, they are doing wonderful stuff.
Yes, sir.
Nothing to belittle there. They are doing wonderful stuff. But we are generally ignorant of what our ancestors have done. And my lecture really is concentrating on that.
Yes, sir.
So my talks on the understanding of heritage is also concentrating on that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Bhaiya, I think it's already 2 o'clock. So though our students are joining in and they have been introduced to sir yesterday, but once again, I'll give a very brief and quick introduction to sir. Of course, as we have already told our students and all the participants alike that Gopu sir has been born and brought up in Madras, obtained BE degree in computer engineering from Madurai Kamaraj University, and MS in computer science from Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, US. Sir worked in the US as software engineer, mostly with Microsoft and Seattle. And of course, Sir returned to India to pursue a career in writing and screenwriting. Of course, his interest is more, Sir has been a lot more interested in primarily the history and heritage of including the history of science and technology in our country. Sir's articles on several topics have been published in the national magazines like The Week, the New Indian Express, and Swaraj. Our Gopu sir is an organizer and volunteer for Tamil Heritage Trust for programs like its monthly lectures, annual heritage site seminars, lecture kacheris, and how to see a temple and how to see a museum. And in 2016, Sir was endorsed, Sir was bestowed with, of course, an award by Vedavali Memorial Heritage for his services in towards culture of the country. Our Gopu sir is also the co-founder of Varahamir Science Forum, which conducts monthly lectures in science in Chennai and online as well. Sir conducts a course on Indian astronomy and mathematics targeted at the general public and not only the professional astronomers or mathematics. Sir is doing a lot of work towards making a genuine awareness towards the Indian heritage and, of course, the history of science and technology in our country. So with these words, of course, a very warm welcome to you, sir. And I'm sure the children want to listen to you more than they would like to listen to me right now. So over to you, sir, for your session. Thank you so much for being with us.
All right. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm just sharing my blog link in that chat window. Then I will start my presentation. Yeah. Okay. Today I have taken up a specific aspect of Indian astronomy. Today it won't be going to too much math and all that. Something on astronomy and a little bit of geography that we are not familiar with. This may be a shorter lecture, so we may have more time for Q&A after that. So this topic couple of para before. I thought it might interest you. So this is about Ujjain meridian. Now, most of us only know about Greenwich meridian, and we always think that it has been used for longitudes and time calculation. Every time is based on you have universal time for the world stated Greenwich meridian, and every country and region whatever has its own time based on the longitude difference from Greenwich meridian. Now, for equator, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, you don't have a choice. That the Earth's orbit, way the Earth rotates, of intersecting point is the central point between North Pole and South Pole. That circle is the equator. And Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, you all know. Arctic Circle also. But meridian, the lines, the curved line connecting North Pole to South Pole, there is no set feature. It's it's not so you can take any longitude and set it as a default meridian. So we know of the Greenwich meridian, which is about 3 or 4 centuries old. But this Ujjain meridian was what Indian astronomers have used for at least 1,500 years, probably at least 2,000, nearly 2,000 years we have been using Ujjain meridians. So we start with an older perception. So in the ancient times, perhaps even before the Rigvedic period, there was a concept of a flat earth with a large gigantic mountain called Meru at the center, and then people thought that the sun went around the Meru, and then that is why it disappeared at night. So because it was coming around, going behind the sun, it is not visible. In fact, this is not just in Hindu Vedic mythology. You have something like that in Jaina mythology, Buddhist mythology also. India, you had this concept. In fact, in other cultures also, we may have had a similar concept. And then the Himalaya mountains are supposed to be much. Look at the size of this. This is just somebody's map from the internet I've taken. So Meru is supposed to be kind of a reverse conical, not like a conical like this, but conical like this, reverse conical, where the Devas, the Devaloka is on top of this mountain. So gods resided. So one concept. Why we got this concept, we don't know. And the Himalayas were very tall mountains, but look how small they are compared to the conception of Meru. And different people have different conceptions. Okay. And Bharatavarsha lay to the Himalayas, lay to the south of Meru, and Bharatavarsha lay to the south of Himalayas. This is one concept of Meru. And they also had this concept of seas around this huge Jambudvipa, on which we are supposed to be there. Heard of the ocean of milk, ocean of curd, and all that. So this was the Puranic concept. And this Puranic concept of a universe is not specific to Indian culture. All ancient cultures, Greek, Chinese, Egyptians, Mesopotamians, Mayans and Aztecs in Central America, all of them had their own different understanding of what the world looked like, what the universe looked like. For example, this is the Puranic geographical map of the earth, with the Mount Meru as the center of a lotus star, with Bharatavarsha or Bharatakanda to the south of it. 4 continents were their idea. The 4 continents on 4 sides of Meru were Bharatakanda to the south, Ketumala to the west, Bhadrashva to the east, and Kuru to the north. Okay, this is again one person's representation today. This is not exactly but it roughly corresponds to what the old concept was. And look at how the whole thing is depicted as a lotus, right? The center of a lotus stalk with the lotus petals on 4 sides. This is the kind of thing we have. Now, remember, these are all the understanding of that we have is literary understanding and a metaphorical understanding. This is not, we don't have an ancient map. The old documents were not in written form or on palm leaf, on Bhuj Patra and all that. We don't have any map like this. This is a modern rendering based on the Puranic explanation of what this was. And like I said, in other cultures, we also had similar things. This is the Greek map from the 1st or 2nd century BC of the universe, sky map. Okay. So the large earth, they also had a geocentric concept. Earth was at the Solis, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. That's all they knew. And then they had a bunch of zodiacal concepts around it. Okay, the zodiac. Still, you can see it is written in something. This is actually written in Latin. It's a Latin. The word abode, residence, right? They is gods. So the abode of the god. So they had a slightly different perception from that. That there is the outermost circle of the universe. The gods lived. This was their concept. So we had variations. It helps now to understand that Indian astronomy itself went through various phases. The oldest period is there is Vedic period where we don't have any specific astronomical text. We just have corpus of literature of various slokas and mantras and the guidelines of how to live. We still use that, but there is no scientific text that from that period, though there are mentions of astronomy, and that is where this Mount Meru and all the Puranic concept all comes from. Around 1200 BC, and this is only an estimated date, a person called Lagada, a rishi called Lagada, came up with a document. It is only 38 shlokas. There are two versions of this. There is two Vedanga Jyotishas. One is Rigvedanga Jyotisha, the other is Yajurvedanga Jyotisha. They are extraordinarily similar except for one shloka. Every 37 shlokas in one, 36 in the other. They are all the same except for one shloka, which is really only a prayer, not a significant mathematical astronomical concept. And that is the oldest astronomical text that we had. So, but much later, between 500 BC and 500 AD, and this is also estimated because the books of this Vedanga Jyotisha we still get. Okay, we still have this document. There is a period of mathematical Siddhanta. So astronomy moved from Puranic and metaphorical and mandated statements to Siddhantas. Siddhantas like Surya Siddhanta, Vashishta Siddhanta, Brahma Siddhanta, and other Siddhantas like that. Okay. So those 18 Siddhantas are rumored or referred to in other literature, of which none are available today. All those Siddhantas are lost, except in the 6th century, early 6th century, around 520, 525, one Indian scholar, mathematician called Varaha Mihira, wrote a text called the Pancha Siddhantika, where he compares the astronomy and mathematics of 5 of these 18 Siddhantas. Of the 5 of these 18 Siddhantas, Surya Siddhanta, Paitamaha Siddhanta, Paitamaha means of Pitamaha or Brahma, and Vashishta Siddhanta, he compares. And then 2 other Siddhantas, one is called Romaka Siddhanta. So it is probably authored by somebody who came from Rome. And another one is called Paulisha Siddhanta. And Paulisha Siddhanta, people think was authored by a Greek person called Paulus Alexandrinus from Alexandria, who came to India, and all of these are not available, but we have this comparative text written by Varaha Mihira. A contemporary of Varaha Mihira was Aryabhatta. So we had this Vedic period of mathematics and astronomy, very little maths, very little astronomy. Vedanga Jyotisha, the first real text that still survives. We have this period of 18 Siddhantas, of which we don't have text. But in this period, already Ujjain meridian, a lot of mathematics, eclipse prediction, all that has come into play. And then of the 5th century, literally 499, at the end of the 5th century, beginning of the 6th century, Aryabhatta writes his Aryabhatiyam with a lot of mathematics and the beginning of the classical period of Indian astronomy and mathematics. All the way up to 1500, 1600, and from 15th century, 16th century, we have mostly documents only from Kerala. So that people are talking about a Kerala school of mathematics and astronomy. They invented new concepts. So, and even new concepts in astronomy. So that happened there. Then the Westerners came to India. After this 16th century, we had Copernicus, after whom we had Galileo, and 17th century Newton, Galileo, etc. And then their astronomy with the telescope and other concepts came along, and we had heliocentric theory. So we got into the modern common era. In fact, what happened is, after the colonial conquest of Europeans all over the world, they made obsolete all the other astronomies. So basically, all the geocentric concepts in China, in Egypt, in Arabic, all of that were obsolete, and then this became the default concept. So you have to get to this vague understanding of the history of the development of astronomy. Now the Ujjain meridian is already in use in this 18 Siddhantas period, but since those texts are not available, we now only have reference to from Aryabhatta, Varaha Mihira almost, and I will be quoting a couple of things from Aryabhatta and Varaha Mihira. So we know this Greenwich meridian. And this Ujjain meridian is simply another meridian. Remember, this is, I'm projecting it on a flat map. But remember, these are all arcs of a circle going from North Pole to South Pole, cutting the equator. It is just any meridian can be used. India used the Ujjain meridian, the meridian going through Ujjain. Pancha Siddhantika, to understand why you need a meridian and why you need to calculate and I mentioned this yesterday also. Earth is composed of 5 elements: Pancha Bhuta, Pancha Mahabhutam Ayas, Taragana Panchare, Mahi Golaha. Golaha, it is a sphere. The earth, Mahi is earth, is a sphere among the cage of stars. Panchara, Panchara means cage. Taragana Panchare, cage of the collection of stars. In that is the earth. How is it there? It is like a ball of iron, right? Ayas, K, Ayas. Ayas means iron. Sorry, Loha means iron. Loha, it's like a ball of iron. Kanta Antaha. Kanta is magnet. Antaha means inside. Kanta Antaha, it is there. Okay. So, from Puranic view of a flat earth as a lotus, there was a transition to understanding of earth as a sphere. And Meru now started becoming this gigantic mountain, but it was simply considered the point that marked the North Pole. And Vadavamukha is the point that is considered marking area, whatever it is, considered marking the South Pole. The mythological understanding stayed the same. That is, people considered that the Devas or Brahma lived in this Meru, that is at the North Pole, and the Asuras are the what we call the Rakshasas and all that. Those people lived in the South Pole. Okay, so we have the different understanding from flat Earth to this particular concept, and we have this redefinition of Meru as North Pole and Vadavamukha as South Pole, with Asuras living in the South Pole and Devas living in the North Pole. So Varahamira gives another interesting metaphor. He says, suppose you're standing at the edge of a lake, brink of water. What will happen? You'll see the reflection of you standing, right? It will be, reflection will be upside down in the water. He says, just like that, the Devas living in the North Pole or Meru consider the Asuras to be standing upside down, and the Asuras on their part also think that the Devas are upside down living on the north. So look at a very beautiful metaphorical expression. So this is kind of saying, so if the earth is a globe, automatically what will happen? People will ask, if the world is curved, won't we fall off? A flat earth we can all stand, but in a round earth will we not fall off? Will we not? And he says, no, it's not like that. Everybody just thinks that this person is standing on the top. So Devas think they are standing on top, Asuras think they are standing on top, and he gives this metaphor. I'll come to Aryabhatta's definition also to understand how people stood on the earth, won't people fall off, to address that particular aspect. And then the question is, which is up, which is down? And to explain this again, Varahamira gives a explanation. He says, suppose you have a flame, if you have a cotton wick and you douse it in oil and then you light it, and then whatever you do to the flame will point upwards. If you load it upside down also, the flame will point upwards. So he says, like the flame of a lamp points skywards and a heavy object thrown skywards fall back to earth, and this happens everywhere. This is kind of their concept of gravity without talking about gravity. Okay, they are not defining gravity. They are not talking about it. They are simply giving Varahamira is giving a beautiful metaphorical explanation. He's saying a flame will always point upwards and an object will always fall downwards. And this happens in the land of men and in the land of Asuras. Not just in the North Pole, not just in the South Pole, but all intermediate regions in between. This is what will happen. Okay, all right. Aryabhatta gives a different example. This is Aryabhatta's. This line, this sloka up here is from Aryabhatta. Yadvat Kadamba Pushpa Grantihi, he says. This is a flower called the Kadamba Pushpa, and it is like a collection. This is not like a single flower like a lotus or like a jasmine or something like that. But it is a flower that has lots of these little things, right? These little blossoms. So what happens is it looks like a ball. And in this ball of each bud, flower bud here, the stalk is at the bottom and the bud of that flower is on the top, the bud of that blossom is at top, right? So he says, in this, what if you had this, if you pluck this flower and held it in your hand, what would you say is on top? Which would you turn it down, then what is on top will be go bottom, and whatever is on bottom will be on top, and upside down. And it goes also in the sideways. So if you have a ball with buds like this, every direction, it doesn't matter which is top or which is bottom. So he says, Tadvad Sarva Sattvai Jalajaihi. So people living Stalajaihi. So people living on land and water are like this bud, flower buds on this Kadamba Pushpa Grantaha. So the earth is also, so what a beautiful metaphor he's giving. Okay. He's not going into equations for gravity and all that. He's simply giving a metaphor of the earth as a ball like this Kadamba Pushpa Grantham, and just like each blossom is feet downwards, head upwards, and doesn't have a problem, he says all people, whether land, whether animals, whatever, north, south, whichever, they all will stand like this. Again, another explanation. And he says Meru is in the middle of land. The Swa, that is the abode of the gods, is the middle of land, because all area to the north of India, if you look at it, is all land. And all, as far as if you try to go sail, and people didn't sail very far down, further from the Kanyakumari all the way to Antarctica, there is nothing but water. So their concept was the northern hemisphere is full is in the middle of the water, an island instead of. And he uses the same thing, same joke that Varahamihira also made that joke, said, he says, Devas and Asuras consider themselves beneath, consider each other beneath themselves. I am standing on top, you are standing on water. Varahamihira used the example of a reflection on the edge of a water. Aryabhatta uses this example. And then Aryabhatta says this, when it is sunrise in Lanka, it will be sunset in Siddhapura. And this Lanka is not Sri Lanka, but this point where the Ujjain meridian and the equator intersect. And I'll tell you, when it is sunrise in Lanka, it will be sunset in Siddhapura. And Siddhapura is the other side of the earth. What the Siddhapura is, why they get this concept, we don't know. The commentaries also don't say. There are commentaries on Aryabhatta, Varahamihira. What they knew about the geography, there are people guessing that maybe they had contact with the Mayans and that is what they are talking about. We don't know. There is no reference to it at all. And what this Yavakoti is also, we don't know. Noon at Yavakoti and midnight in Romakavishya. This will only happen if you truly understand that the earth is a globe, that you have meridians, that the sun goes around, because they still thought of it as a geocentric model. The sun goes around, and when the sun goes around, what will happen? When it is sunrise later, or 6 hours later, and it will be midnight in Romakavishya, because it is not yet dawn, and it will be sunset in Siddhapura. So it's a very proper understanding. Today also we see that, right? If it is sunrise in India, it will be sunset somewhere in America, New York, say, and it will be noon in Japan, Indonesia, someplace like that. It will be around noon. And in the central of Europe, it will be midnight. And that is what he's talking about. Okay, this gives us a very beautiful understanding of the 4 different meridians of 4 different areas, 4 different regions of the world. So proper understanding. And India used a meridian that is most suited for Indians, which is the meridian. They use the meridian that passes through Ujjain, North Pole to South Pole. You can use any meridian, and it passes through the equator. Where it passes through the equator, they called it Lanka. The word Lanka means island. In this particular case, it did not necessarily mean an actual island, but just as a metaphorical island that represents the point where these 2 points intersect. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. And Ujjain is over there. It is, and we'll come to the latitude of Ujjain also, which also there is a statement for this. So one of the commentaries, and this is the translation of a commentary on Aryabhatiyam and a couple of other things also. And this, the person who's translated gives this. He says terrestrial equator is called Nirakshara Rekha in Hindu astronomy, which means circle of 0 latitude. It is also called visual. Several things are also considered. In modern astronomy, the primary meridian is taken as Greenwich meridian. Bhaskara has given. Bhaskara is the famous author of Leelavati Siddhanta Shiromani. He has given 4 places on the primary meridian. But another person called Sripati gives many more places under the verse, namely Lanka, Kanyakumari, Kanchi, Pannata, 6-faced white mountain, Valmagulma, and so on, Mahishmati, Ujjain, Ashram. So he gives a whole list. So Bhaskara gives 4 towns on the Ujjain meridian. Ujjain is one of them. They didn't call it Ujjain meridian. They simply call it the line, and then Ujjain is the town that they use for some calculations, and Lanka is the town they use for other calculations. So this is again another line from Aryabhatta, and Aryabhatta says, Stala Jala Madhya Lanka, Madhyat Lankaha. So between land and water is Lanka, this particular Lanka. Bhu Kakshaya, that is this circle. Bhu Kakshaya is this circle, this meridian. Bhavet Chaturbhagoho, it divides this Bhu circle into 4 parts. So Lanka is one of the points, North Pole is another point, South Pole is other point, and this Lanka's equivalent on the 180-degree meridian will be the other 4th point. So Lanka divides, effectively what he's saying is dividing Meru and Badavamukha, it is exactly at the midpoint. And then Ujjaini Lankayaha tat Chaturamshe Sama Uttaraha. So Ujjain is one from Lanka. Ujjaini is 1/4 the distance between this into 90 degrees into 1/4. So what would that distance be? Lanka to Meru is 90 degrees. So because equator is 0 degrees, Meru's North Pole is 90 degrees. Ujjain from this thing is 22.5 degrees. We know it is very close to 23 degrees, Tropic of Cancer. Ujjain that they calculated based on astronomical observations. Remember, they're not doing surveys. They're doing calculations of latitude and longitude based on astronomical observations. Okay. Why should you use any meridian at all? You might ask, right? They didn't have clocks. The Indians were not generally sailing, except for some merchants. Most people were not sailing. There was inhibition against going across the black water, right? Which we know all the way up to the 19th century. So what was the use of this thing? And so I'll give you a sample shloka from one of these. I won't explain in detail, but just to give you an idea of what this is. This shloka, so it says, Gunitam Ahoratra Vyasardameva Kashtantyam. That is the, so you get the phrases. Ishta is disapplication, Vyasardam is half radius, and so on, right? So you have this. It's a formula to calculate something. What is it calculating? It says multiply the day radius of the circle of the greatest declination by the sign of the desired zodiac. Divide by the radius of the day circle of the desired zodiac. The result will be the right ascension of the desired zodiac. Don't worry about what it means. I am only giving you an illustration. This you required astronomy to understand what this particular calculation is. My point is not the calculation. My point is simply to tell you the 0 point latitude, 0 point longitude to calculate whatever longitude you want. Okay, and that is what this is saying. And so he is using Lanka. This Lanka is that point 0.0 degree latitude, 0 degree longitude point based on Ujjain. You can't go to Lanka and calculate. You can calculate in Ujjain and then adjust because simply mathematically for that 0 point, and then they'll use that 0 point and calculate all other times. Okay. Today, what we do is use Indian for standard time. And today we have all countries in the world use a longitude that passes through that country, and it will be a multiple of 7.5 degrees or 15 degrees. So it will be 7.5 or 15 from the 0 degree Greenwich. Greenwich is taken as 0. Every country has a standard time. If the country has multiple standard times, each of those longitudes will be some multiple other, so that it is either half an hour or 1 hour away from every other time zone. So what are we doing? We are taken this longitude. Okay, it goes east of Visakhapatnam somewhere along. This is east of the Lanka that we have today. This is 82.5 degrees east. Whereas Ujjain meridian is at that particular longitude, about 77 degrees east. Okay, that is the one that we used to use before. So today we use this meridian for Indian calculation. What is the point? We use, let me consider a modern problem. We are using one meridian for all of India, right? We are using this meridian for all of India. This 82.5 degrees standard meridian for all of India. But you look at the point, this meridian is 82.5. Gujarat, Ahmedabad is 72 degrees. You look at some place in Assam, Guwahati, it is 92 degrees, right? Guwahati is 92 degrees, and Arunachal Pradesh, parts of it are even further east. The difference between Gujarat and Assam is 20 degrees, right? 20 degrees in longitude, which is 1.5 hours actual time variation. Because each degree of longitude is about 4 minutes, 15 degrees is an hour, 20 degrees is about hour and not exactly 1.5 hours, but roughly 1.5 hours. So, but Gujarat and Assam are using the same time period as Varanasi and Chennai because we are all the whole country using one time zone. Okay, this is convenient for modern industrial practice, for modern government, for institutions, and all that. But this is not accurate time. This is not accurate time as according to the point where the sun is above us, or where the stars are above us, or where the moon is above us. We are using it for an industrial society. This gives unusual problems. Whereas in the Vedas, they wanted you to use correct time. That is, whatever the local time is the one that they should perform. So you cannot do a particular, suppose you are doing Sandhya Vandanam. Sandhya Vandanam, when you do it only when the Sandhya is there. You do it when your sunrise is there. So the person in Assam and person in Gujarat will not do Sandhya Vandanam at the same time. They will only do it, 2 hours apart. And that goes for north-south also, because Delhi versus Madras or some other place, right? Bangalore versus Varanasi, the times will be different. So you do it based on local things. And we still do that for our social functions and religious functions, right? Use Panchangam. We don't go with, we may tell people that it is Indian Standard Time, but the time that we are basing it is based on the Indian calendar. So the Vedic Yajna, social functions and religious ceremonies, actually we require, they are mandated to be of greater accuracy than cricket matches or government programs, right? So that is why, for example, if you have a cricket match in Guwahati, what happens? They start at, that will be 9 o'clock, they'll official start, but it will be very early in Guwahati, right? Or it will be very late in Rajkot or Ahmedabad when they are playing. So we use that for that. So this is the point of using the Ujjain meridian. What the Siddhanta makers, what Aryabhatta or Brahmagupta or Varahamihira or Bhaskaracharya or Nilakanta, what they would do is, they would calculate, give you an overall calculation, how to methods of calculation, procedures of calculation, all based on Ujjain meridian, Ujjain time or Lanka time is what they will calculate. And then based on that, they'll create something called Karana. You don't study every principle from physics and astronomy to do all of that. They'll give you a Karana, and local people in, say, Kanchipuram or Varanasi or somewhere in Andhra, Tirupati, or wherever it is, they will use their local Karanas to use the compute their Panchanga. So that is what they will do. Okay, that is called Deshantara. So for your longitude and latitude, you will take the principle that you use whatever is set for your area. So that is why different areas will have different Panchangas with a few small gaps in latitude and longitude. Okay, and different text gives you different list of cities on the meridian from North Pole to, and for example, look at this. This one gives this is from Lanka onwards. The cities lying on this are Karanagara, Sitarugeha, Pannata, Mishitapuri, Taparni, Sitavara, Vatsya Gulma, which is the Kaushambi of Udayana, Vananagari. We don't even know what this Vananagari is. Avanti or Ujjain, Stanesha, and Meru. So this is a list of cities in one particular text. A different text, for example, so I give you comparative longitudes because these are the cities given as to be on the Ujjain meridian. They are not very accurate in the sense that most of them are actually lying on the same meridian as Ujjain. But Kanchi is very, very east of Ujjain. Kanchi is very far off, nearly 4 degrees off. That is only given in one text. Most of them give within 1 degree of latitude, longitude of Ujjain, Kurukshetra, Kanyakumari, Rohtak, and so on. So these are the places that are given. Surya Siddhanta uses this. He uses the word Rakshasalaya for Lanka, even though that is not the Lanka that we should calculate. Devakula Shaila means Meru, Rohitaka means Rohtak, Ujjain, and Kurukshetra. Sannihita Saha uses this phrase. And Lalla uses a different list. He even includes a river, because why he is given a river we don't know, because our Shweta Shaila, white mountain, and these should be very, very large areas. Why we have used given an entire river when you only need a longitude, I don't understand. But his is the one that list that gives Kanchi, which is very far off the Ujjain meridian. So this is the concept of Ujjain meridian, and that is mentioned. All astronomic text gives based on that. In fact, 17th century, an European mathematician went to, I think he was in Thailand. In Thailand, he saw an astronomer calculate an eclipse, and that astronomer calculated, based on some things. He's using conch shells, cowrie shells, little seashells. He was using that for mathematical, so not log tables and paper and all that. So using all that, he did some calculations, and just before he finished, he adjusted the calculations with setting off by some 1.5, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. He said, "What are you doing?" And he understood, the Western astronomer understood that he is adjusting for a different longitude, and that longitude seemed to be in India. What he didn't understand is, why is this Thai astronomer using an Indian longitude for his calculations and then adjusting for local conditions? Okay, because what are they using was, they also had this derivative from the Sanskrit text, their derivative karnam for the local area. So, Southeast Asia, Sanskrit was used for the royal. So, Thailand, Burma, Indonesia, Malaysia, Sri Vijaya, they are all the languages, the scripts of those languages are based on Pallava Grantham script, which was used for Sanskrit in South India. And a lot of them are Sanskrit text, and a lot of them use museum in Vietnam. Cambodia. In Cambodia, it's found. It was in a temple. They have now moved that stone to the museum in the capital city. So this gentleman found out, and that is what they were using. Now, besides, because I am from Madras, I'll give you this. This is just an additional thing. Ujjain meridian was the only, before we fully switched to, before we had the 82.5 degrees east meridian, we also had something called the Madras meridian. The East India Company ruled from here. They established a society here, and one of the first things that they established was an observatory in Madras in 1796. And then an astronomer called Michael Topping calculated the longitude of Madras with respect to Greenwich, because Greenwich meridian, the English had already established. He calculated the longitude of Madras in 1792, and it was also recorded later by John Goldingham, another astronomer, and he recorded this longitude as 80 degrees east. So Madras used this meridian to set Madras time for the Britishers. Indians are still using whatever, Panchangam calculations and all that. So why I mentioned this Madras time is later on, so this is 1792, okay. 1792, steam engine had just been invented, but no railways was there. 1840s only railways came in, were established even in England. 1853 only India had the first railway, Bombay, Thana, Boribandar, whatever. And by 1870s, India had an extensive network of railways. So, but the railways are, if they're using different time zones, you would have problems of accident and communication. There are telegraph lines, but there are no telephone yet, only telegraph. And there was a danger of all problems because the railway times are all using local time, and the railways were using local time. So what Indian Railways did was adopt a standard time for all of India, all of the railways. And the time that they used was Madras time. Okay, they used Madras time because it's more of India. There was exception. I think Bombay Presidency, some areas they use Bombay time. But most of the Indian railways use Madras time as the standard railway time. And it effectively became the standard time for India until independence, when we did this 7.5 degree east, multiple of 7.5 degree thing. And we have this longitude now, which is what we use today. If you come to Madras, you can come to the Madras Observatory. This is the pillar established by Michael Topping in 1792. Very interestingly, this pillar has inscriptions not only in English, but also in Tamil, Telugu, and Urdu. And the Tamil inscription has a date, not just the Christian calendar date, 1792. In fact, there is a separate plaque with a Latin inscription, which has the 1792 Kali Yuga date. Kali Yuga starts with Mahabharata, ending of Mahabharata. So that the actual year Kali Yuga 1 would be 3000. Put this Kali Yuga data, Kali Abdam means Kali year, 4893 in this pillar, in the Tamil inscription. So with that, I would like to conclude this particular presentation on the Ujjain meridian. Before I stop, I want to say one thing before lest I forget. I am giving you a presentation, I am giving you information. Ideally, you should really go to the sources. All these texts, Aryabhatta, Bhaskara, Brahmagupta alone is not properly available. Varahamira, all of these people have written texts. The Sanskrit texts are available as PDF. Translations are available. Commentaries are available. Books are there. Lot of lectures are there on the internet. You can go and see it. And while to understand some of this, you need somebody like me to explain in English. You should really, if you are interested, you should go read the Sanskrit sources. People tend to be afraid of it. Don't be afraid. Go to the Sanskrit, look at words in every Indian language. All Indian languages use Sanskrit very extensively. Just like there are Latin and Greek words in English and French and German and all that. Sanskrit words are there, and you will be very comfortable learning these concepts. So that I finish this talk. Some of this stuff is there in my blog also. You can go look it up. And thank you to AICTE and all the organizers. I hope this was informative and useful. If you have any questions at this point, I'll be very delighted to answer to the best of my ability.
Definitely, thank you so much, Gopu sir. And I'm sure the children must be full of queries and questions. So in this regard, Vishwajit Kumar, you have the mic, beta. Miss Arzu.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So would you like to ask her something, or would you like to talk about something?
Ma'am, I just want to say that it gives so much information about the Indian ancestors. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
Vishwajit, you are just unmuted. Vishwajit. Okay, Muruthul Manoj. You too have the mic.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello. Hello, sir.
Yes, hello. Go ahead.
Your class were very informative, sir. We find so much informative about Indian meridian. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So could you tell something about how to look at temples and how to look at museum as it was told in your introduction?
That's a separate program. Our group Tamil Heritage Trust does what we do a one-day program. We have 3 lectures, so it's 1.5 hours. So like this, I give a 40-minute lecture, whatever, right? We give a 1.5 hour lecture on each 3 different lectures. One is on architecture. The other is on iconography. That is, what does the statues look like? What different statues are? What does the bronzes look like? What is the iconography? For example, Shiva's Gangadhara will look different from Shiva's Nataraja, which will look from Shiva's Gajasamhara Murti. So what are the different iconography? Vishnu as Varaha Murti will be different from Vishnu as and what are the various poses? So those things we talk about. Then thirdly, we talk about inscriptions all over India. Since we are, then finally what happens is we take the people to a local temple and we point out architectural features, and that is the program called How to See a Temple. And we do a similar program. You can form an organization in your town, and I'm sure there will be some expert archaeologists, whatever, so on, who can do this in your town also, wherever it is. Not every town has very ancient temples. Tamil Nadu is very lucky that way. We have hundreds of thousands of old temples, but almost every town has, you can organize it. And we can see it. That is one thing that we do. The other one we do is how to see a museum. And we do the same thing for the museum also. We do it for the local museum naturally, but.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I saw a question. Yes, I am from Tamil Nadu. I am from Madras. I was born and brought up in Madras, Chennai.
There were more children with mic on them. Let's say Dhanush, Miss Dhanusha, Miss Dhanusha. Okay, I'll pass on.
I'm seeing some chat questions in the chat forum. Something is asking about Jantar Mantar come much later. Jantra Mantra is Yantra Mantra. That comes very much later. There are lots of questions about temples and culture. I think there's a lot of interest in it. I don't know what to say. There are, by the way, we'll also do our group will do an Indology conference in the end of the month, November. If you wish, I will share you the link. Our this tamilheritage.in is our, just type Tamil Heritage and you'll stumble upon our website. And we'll have lectures on, we already have like 10 years worth of lectures on architecture, iconography, various aspects of Indian culture. You can see that hundreds of people are doing it. By the way, especially because of Zoom, all over India, people are learning. In Andhra, there is some Stapatya Kala Parishad that's giving lectures on temples in Andhra. There are people doing in Karnataka, ancient this thing, they're all doing it. Maths, science also people are doing it. Just last week there was a seminar on ancient chemistry in India. I know nothing about it, but there is wonderful stuff in chemistry, in metallurgy, in manufacturing, in dyeing, painting, all that. There's all kinds of information.
Gopu sir, somebody is asking about Pushpak Viman.
Yes, that is the Ramayana thing, right?
Yes.
We only have that literary story. We don't know what it is. There are people who think it is an aeroplane. I have no idea. They all, Rama had a chariot, that Dasaratha had a chariot. Did they have, when he had a horse-drawn chariot instead of a mechanical chariot, could they have had an aeroplane? How could it fly? Could it have been like an equivalent of a hot air balloon? I don't know. We can only guess about that. We don't know evidence to say anything. We have only literary mentions.
Yes, Vijay Raja, you have the mic, beta. Would you like to ask something?
I just saw a question fly by about Iron Pillar, Delhi Iron Pillar. Delhi Iron Pillar is actually not originally from Delhi. It may have been, most likely, some people think it's from a place in near Ujjain, near actually Bhopal, a place called Udayagiri. And it may have been, a temple in front of a Vishnu temple. It is a pillar of Jadastamba from a Vishnu temple.
Hello,
some people
ma'am.
think there may also mark an observatory of that period. I don't know for sure.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes, hi.
Sir, do you think there's a connection between Brahmastra and the nuclear weapon, as it is mentioned in our scriptures that Brahmastra is something which can be destroyed in air only. If it falls down, it will cause a destruction.
No. I will not. Okay, that is okay. I won't go into those speculations. There are people who do talk about that.
Okay.
Nuclear, very skeptical. Even famous persons like Arthur C. Clarke have said something like, missile. I am very skeptical. May have been powerful weapons. They may have technology that we don't know about.
Yes.
But there is no description of the technology, no?
Absolutely, sir.
They only talk about the mantra and all that. So I can't. It will only be speculation. Unless we hear and unless we see something solid about what technology was used, how can I say?
Yeah, absolutely.
All these astras are launched from a physical bow, metal bow with a bowstring.
Absolutely, sir.
So there is no rocket propulsion, this thing and all that. So where is all this coming from?
Yes.
There is no mention in any of the astronomical texts or the chemistry texts about such rocket propulsion or any such thing, or any fuel or any such thing.
Right, sir.
Namaste, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, your class was very informative and it has invoked curiosity in me. Sir, I have just a question. Sir, from these classes, from the beginning, we came to the conclusion that our country has a rich ancient history, ancient culture, and they also have a far improved science and technology. Sir, let me ask you now that by knowing those things in this present age, what gain we will have by understanding this ancient culture, the development they made, just as a part of, other than a part of being proud, what advantage can we take from this ancient culture by understanding and reviving these ancient long lost philosophies?
Very good. But you can say that for anything, no? For example, you study Newton's law, 3 laws of motion.
Yes, sir.
Why should they be called Newton's law? What does it matter if it's Newton or somebody else?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't matter, right?
No.
You can say, oh, we study about Archimedes. Why bother? Why call it Archimedes? Why call it Pythagoras theorem? Why associate a name with it? You can just ignore, no? We can just ignore all of that.
Right, sir.
We can completely ignore the history of all science.
Yes, sir.
We can ignore history also. Or we can say, what does it matter if I know history or don't know history? But we are cultural, we are human, we are social beings. It is something that interests us. We want to know, and we also find out what somebody did well or did not do well, did poorly, what misunderstanding they had, what they understood well, what they didn't. So we get a kind of understanding of what those who there's a famous statement: those who do not study history are condemned to repeat it. So we want to avoid the pitfalls of ancestors in history. Hopefully, knowing some history will help us understand some of that. The second, there is cultural pride also. Cultural pride is, don't underestimate it. For example, 2 days back, what is his name? Sudarshan, I think he was the lecturer. He was saying what China should do to get equal Europe and America in terms of technology and science. And they instituted or they put the history of science, professor, or all engineering and science students didn't study only engineering and science. They also studied history of engineering and history of science, and not just Western or European history, but also Chinese science. Whether they studied Indian science or Egyptian technology and all that, I don't know. But they're at least studying their own science. And once they do that, you get some pride in it. They get some confidence that we can also do it. Otherwise, you think only some other foreigner can do it, we can't do it. So that sense of confidence is psychologically important for, you may not be able to do it yourself, but the cultural awareness that our ancestors did this is something that is very valuable. And then as a society, we do need that. And we do feel proud of something, right? When that is why we name a satellite after Aryabhatta. You can say, what did Aryabhatta have to do with rockets or satellite? He was an astronomer. Scientists in ISRO felt proud of him. The government of India, bureaucrats, ministers, all felt proud of him. So they named one after Aryabhatta, one after Bhaskara. They could have named it after a politician, right? You could have one more Nehru satellite or Vallabhbhai Patel satellite or something. But we wanted to honor him, so we did that. So that is, it's a good question, but this is my answer to that.
Sir, let me ask you on this thing. Sir, other than these historical aspects, just like yoga, which was there in our ancient culture and has revived its momentum now all around the world, do we have such potential in the history of science, technology, and everything, architecture, sculpture? Do we have that potential which once revived, get all around the world and just...
There is no, what revival are you talking about? We are talking only about understanding what is in the past. We are reading awareness of what is there in the past and understanding what is there in the past.
Yes, sir.
Right? So for example, I'll give you another example. So the Indus Valley civilization, they are doing archaeology. They are finding some scripts. They are finding some small clay tablets with some stamps. Same way they found it in Egypt. In pyramids, they found some writing, hieroglyphic writing. In Iraq, Sumeria, they found some Babylonia, they found some cuneiform clay tablets, ancient writing. That script is all forgotten. We don't know what it is. But in the last 200 years, those scripts were deciphered, and the entire history of the past was then learned from that. Today, you can say, that is not necessary. It is obsolete. You can say we don't need it. But we found out that it is actually useful. I'll give you a different example. But understanding the history of the past, why that wonderful civilization suddenly, something happened, it collapsed. Egyptian civilization completely ended. Alexander the Greek, and then after that, Romans conquered them, and then Christianity happened, and then Islam conquered them. So it's now entirely for the last 1,400, 1,500 years, they are a Muslim country, right? They don't have a connection with that ancient past. Same with Sumeria and Babylonia and all that. Right? We, on the other hand, have a continuity, even though we had occupied by foreign powers. British came later on, French and Portuguese and all are occupying parts of India and all that. The Mughals and even before the Muslims, there are other invasions. Romans, Greeks and all that came here. So we kind of we do want to know our past and all that. I'll give you a relevant example. It's not from this subject, not from astronomy, but from grammar. Panini's grammar uses a particular notation. Panini's grammar of Sanskrit uses a particular way of notation. And when the Western scholars first studied it, they were very puzzled. It was a very cryptic notation. It was unnecessary. Other Indian grammars don't follow that particular. They are more literary. It's a very mathematical notation for that grammar. They said, why do we need this? Why has he done this? Then 100 years later, so they were studying this with the beginning of 1800 to 1850. They were studying Panini's grammar. They were questioning this. At the beginning of the middle of the 20th century, when computers were we started developing computers, we realized we needed languages to write computer programs, not just machine language that the computer can understand, but like Fortran and Pascal and Basic and all these other languages, C++, we are using all of these, Java, Python. So to develop a language, we needed a grammar for those computer languages. And they needed a mathematical formulation for those computer languages. And when they developed the mathematical notation, there is a particular formulation called Backus-Naur form. Backus is the IBM scientist who developed Fortran. Okay, John Backus was a mathematician, worked for IBM. They developed Fortran. He was head of a team that developed the language called Fortran. And he developed a form called Backus-Naur notation to develop a grammar for the computer language. In fact, all computer languages today, most computer languages can be represented in Backus-Naur form. And it turns out that Backus-Naur form is almost exactly a copy of Paninian grammar. Panini discovered a notation for representing Sanskrit language that in the era when they had no computers, that the scientists then used to study, that then developed for computer languages. And you can use Paninian notation. Paninian notation is much more advanced than what Backus-Naur. In fact, today all linguistics worldwide use the Paninian way of notation. They understand now to compare one language to another. Paninian notation is very useful. So this is one example. Another relevant example is, I will say one practical example. Recently, 4 or 5 years back, a person, Indian scientist, mathematician called Manjul Bhargava won the Fields Medal. Fields Medal is the prize given for mathematics. Unlike the Nobel Prize, it is given only once in 4 years, and it is only given to somebody under the age of 40. So Manjul Bhargava got this, and he says he got it for research in mathematics, contemporary mathematics. But he says he grew up entirely in America, Canada and America, I think. But he says he studied the mathematics written in Hemachandra, Pingala, Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, Bhaskara, and all this mathematics. He studied the Sanskrit. And he says studying them gave them insights that you would not have gotten simply studying European mathematics alone. What insights, I don't know. You have to take, you have to ask him. You have to look at his papers. He's given lectures. You can go see his lectures online and all that. But he says that, and the Fields Medalist says, look, getting understanding about this is useful for my work. So I think that itself stands testament to that.
Yes, sir. It was exactly clear. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very well, Gopu sir. This has been such an enriching lecture, and definitely there are so many hands risen. So I think Mukund, would you like to ask us something?
Sir, earlier you showed green sky map, right? So,
Greek sky map, yeah.
Yeah. Was it looking like some Stargate or something like that?
No,
Which are assumptions?
No. Science is one thing, science fiction is something else. Don't get from one to the other and jump to conclusions.
Because the same type of Stargates are found
so
in which they believe, right?
So our filmmakers, when they do it, they will copy from science only, so they inspired, so they'll put something, So
and one more, what about your take on Konark Sun Temple, something like that?
Yeah, Konark, they built a very large temple for the sun, for Surya. Instead of
and
most of the temples in India are for Vishnu, Shiva, Devi, Mata, Lakshmi, Durga, and all that, right? There are some temples also for Surya, and Konark was one of the temples for Surya. So the main deity there is Surya. But it's a very grand temple. But is there a question you are trying to connect to this particular lecture?
Just like the what we have clock, which is of old thing, like which we take in India,
clock.
right?
No. So there is this video going around that the wheels of the chariot of Konark or some clock. No. We had much more sophisticated clocks than the wheel of a chariot. The chariot wheels in Konark are facing north and south, not west and east. Right? If you want a clock, sundial like a clock, you put it on the ground. Not, you don't make it face north or south, right? But that some imaginary person is giving you this, that's all. So I don't agree with that. I don't believe that. But there's a lot of internet videos that do talk about this kind of mythological connection. That's not the correct one. That is just a chariot design. That's all. The architecture of temple itself is actually fascinating. If you go to look at Orissa, temple architecture is very
Sir.
Any other questions?
Sir, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Sir, after 70 years of independence, what do you think is the reason for our ignorance to these subjects?
I don't know. I think a lot of people have not studied this subject. They have not bothered to look at these things. There are actually people who have, I'm basing not my research on other scholars who have done research. They have recommended to various governments at various times. It's not party based. It's not a political view based. They have talked about it to different governments. They have talked about, I'm talking people who are scientific advisors to prime ministers have talked about this. Only now, in the last few years, they have developed syllabus, given optional subject in school for Indian astronomy, mathematics, various heritage things. But most of our parents and children want to only mainstream science. They want physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. They want to be engineers or doctors, or they want to be accountants or management people. So there doesn't seem to be an interest. So only from these other fora we are providing information and they are learning. I'll give you one kind of a bizarre thing. You know Ramanujan, the great mathematician who lived about 100 years back.
Yes, sir.
He lived in Kumbakonam. He was born and brought up in Kumbakonam, then he came to Madras. He is from a Brahmin family. A lot of people in his family and his circle knew Sanskrit. You know what he has written about Aryabhatta or Brahmagupta or Bhaskara?
No, sir.
Absolutely nothing. He seems to have had zero interest in all of this Sanskrit stuff. Even though some of the greater, he surely knew about them. Even if he didn't know Sanskrit, there were English translations. And even Ramanujan seems to have had no interest whatsoever in these subjects. Even world-class mathematicians today, Manjul Bhargava accepted. Manjul Bhargava is an unusual person who's shown interest. There are hundreds of Indian mathematicians and engineers who show interest. For some reason, they don't know. They don't show interest. I didn't know anything about Indian chemistry, though there was a lot of things. Somebody I was mentioning the historical fiction. For example, Ajanta. The paintings of Ajanta are 2000 years old. The oldest painting there is 2nd century BC. It is still there in original somewhat condition. So some of it has collapsed, okay? Some of it has suffered damage. But the paint from 2200 years, suppose you you look at the paint on your house, you look at the paint in your car or your scooter, how long will it last? 30 years, 40 years? 10 years, 15 years, you are painting. Your advertisement telling you that this paint will last one generation. But in actual one generation, we have 2000-year-old paint in Ajanta. We have 1000-year-old paint in Tanjavur. We have 1300-year-old paint in. We don't use them. We don't even know what the technology is. We know some degree about it. But we use only modern acrylic paints because they are perhaps because they are cheaper, perhaps they are easier to make. They are not, the old paint must have been natural process. We want industrial paint. We don't even study that. We think about the art of Ajanta, but we don't think about the technology of painting in Ajanta. Paint is a chemical, no? Chemical technology must. I don't know why. So efforts like this will probably, prompt people to go into it. And once there is a bottom of demand, perhaps that situation will change.
Very well said, sir. And dear children and dear participants, from 3 to 3:15, we have a small break time. And all those who would like to proceed for a small bio break or a break, please go ahead with that. Because at 3:15, we'll be having a session on health. And Dr. Kumaraswamy will be there to enlighten us on furthermore aspects. Until then, if any of the children want to ask something, Gopu sir is with us for another, let's say, 5 minutes or so. So you can just talk to him as well, because I'm very sure the children won't leave you, sir. They are so much so interested in your talk, and from
Yeah.
at 3:15 onwards, we'll be having a session on health. So till then, for another 5 minutes, dear participants or students, you can have your time with Gopu sir, and you can communicate accordingly with sir, whatever you would like to ask sir, or anything that you're curious about. So Manas, would you like
Hello.
to
Yes,
say
ma'am.
something, beta?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
So,
After Manas, Arzu, you can please ask the question.
hello, sir.
Oh,
Hello.
Yes.
So, with reference to Wikipedia, so it is mentioned that Indian astronomy flowered in the 5th and 6th century with Aryabhatta, and later
Yeah.
it was influenced by Chinese astronomy, Muslim astronomy, and European astronomy. So, what do you think would have been the reason for this dominance of all these other astronomies over Indian astronomy?
No, I don't know that we have any influence of Chinese astronomy at all in India. Some Greek was there, but that was even before Aryabhatta. I
Okay.
told you one person called Romaka Siddhanta. There is one document called Romaka Siddhanta. We use a couple of terms from Greek. That was well before Aryabhatta, and it didn't start with Aryabhatta. I told you, Aryabhatta is the last stage of the Indian astronomy. There are a lot long before Aryabhatta, 1,000 years at least. There was a bunch of documents. Unfortunately, those are lost. So what can we do about that?
Yes.
Those books are those palm leaves and all those. Those manuscripts are lost.
Okay.
So we only have from Aryabhatta solid texts and
Hmm.
commentaries and other things.
Right.
All cultures, we don't know what the influence on different cultures in different areas. Our astronomy and mathematics went west. I told you yesterday. It went to Baghdad. The
Right.
Arabs copied from us. Here's the thing: Arabs copied. There is Arabic translation. There is Persian translation. Then there is Italian, English, Russian translation. But they are not translations of these Sanskrit texts. Even in Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam there are. Marathi there are. Some books there are there in so who's Chinese influence there is not very much today. There is actually Chinese manufacturing today is much more pervasively influential than Chinese astronomy per se in Indian astronomy.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Arzu, would you like to ask something? Arzu,
Yes, ma'am. I also want to ask about that. I'm
Please
got
go ahead.
interest. I'm got interest in the to know about the Aryabhat. So, can you recommend any book that where I read about?
Specific book, no, but there is no book on there are books about the translations of Aryabhatta is there. Aryabhatium is there. Okay. PDF is there. There is a website called sanskritdocuments.org. I think that has it. You just search for Aryabhatta. You'll get translations by K.V. Sharma and K.V. Shukla. You'll see the translation by Walter Eugene Smith. So there is no. I don't know of any biography of Aryabhatta. I don't know of any biography of any Indian astronomer. There are no books like that, but there are a book like Balachandra Rao has written a book about introduction to Indian astronomy. There's a person called Venugopal Heru. You can look at Datta and Singh. They have written a wonderful book translating or giving a large it's the standard book that a lot of scholars refer to about
Yes.
all aspects of Indian astronomy and mathematics.
Thank you, sir.
That's so nice, and I think we shall now invite